continuing on events, we are going to see sort of a special important event that we can listen for called DOMContentLoaded. And we'll see in a second why that one is useful. But first, let's address a problem that we might have as we create websites that are bigger and bigger and have more and more lines of code. So far, we've been writing our script or JavaScript inside a script tag inside the HTML. But as our JavaScript grows, it can be even hundreds of lines. This will be inconvenient, having HTML mixed up with JavaScript in one single file. So for that, we have a solution, which is taking in the JavaScript to a separate file and then linking the HTML with that JavaScript so that they act as if they were one together, basically. So for doing that, let's first see what we have here, which is we have this simple website. It's grabbing the h1 tag and is doing window.alert h.inner tag, so that when I go to my website and I refresh the page with Command R, I see welcome to my website. Do that again, and I see the exact same alert with welcome to my website. Okay, so let's say again, our programs can grow to hundreds of lines, and we don't want to mix them up in HTML. So the solution for that is to create another file. You can do that with regular touch. I'm gonna see what folder I'm in. This is my current folder. You may be in a different folder, but I want to create an .js file next to my HTML file, in this case index.html. And it's convention oftentimes to call the HTML file the same as the HTML file. Did I say that correctly? It's a convention to use the same name for the JavaScript file as the HTML file. So what do I mean by that? I will create a file called touch. No, I'm going to create a file with touch called index.js. Now I'm going to open that in my text editor with Chase code. Now that opens up here. And then in here, I'm just going to take in my JavaScript code from the script tag. I'm going to take it from there and I'm going to paste it here. And then I'm going to save that with Command S. Okay, now going back to my HTML, we have, now we no longer need this here. We will still need the script tag. And now let's go back to the browser. Let's see what we have. Let's see if we still see the pop-up. We no longer see the pop-up, right? So indeed, that's because our script is empty. So what we want to do is link this script tag with my index.js file. So for doing that, it turns out that the script tag, just like an image tag, has the src for source attribute that we can set. So let's do src, and this is just like in an image. This will be where the image is coming from. In this case, this is where our script will come from. This is the source of our script. In this case, I could just do period for the current folder / index.js. So this in here, having a script tag with the source pointing to our JavaScript file, will link the two files together as the HTML and JavaScript file. So once I save this and I go back to the browser, I refresh, I see my pop-up is back, as if it was just one file. Here the HTML and the JavaScript are linked together, they work together. Okay, so that's basically how we can have a cleaner website where we take out our JavaScript code, we put it into a separate file, in this case index.js, and then we bring it up sort of in our HTML by having a script tag with a source attribute pointing to the JavaScript file. Right? again, it's a convention or good practice to have the HTML and JavaScript files named the same, in this case index. But you could name the JavaScript file anything you want, as long as you remember to link it here correctly by saying the source is whatever name you picked, .js. Okay, so in here, do you guys remember that we were saying HTML was read top to bottom? So the head comes first, then the body, the h1 will come first, then the p tag, then lastly the script tag, right? So here we are able to, for instance, if we look at the JavaScript file, we see that the JavaScript file is grabbing the h1 from the DOM by using query selector and then saving that to the h variable. And then we do window.alert h.innerText. And this is possible because the JavaScript file, let's open up this here. This is possible because in the JavaScript file, no, in the HTML file, we have our script after our h1 has been created and after our p tag has been created, so there is no problem there. Now, how does like events kick into this context? It will be nice if we could listen for once the DOM is loaded, so that we can know that we can grab stuff from the DOM. Because the problem that we have is, let's say we move this script to the head, which is traditionally better to have the script inside the head, just so that you know what kind of JavaScript is being imported and it's all in one place. Nice to find right at the top. And that's I'm not sure if you recall, but like when we were using the Hangman game, we were creating the Hangman game, at the top of the file we have something that says like readline sync require readline sync. So it's just a convention that when you're importing outside code into any of your code, you do those sort of imports at the top of the file to be able to see, oh, this is coming from, in this case, this index.html is coming from somewhere else. So in here, you might be already suspecting if we put the script tag in the head, then this will happen first, and then the body has not been created once it's doing this. So our script will execute. It will try to grab an h1 from the DOM, but because our script tag is in the head and the h1 has not been created yet, because again, HTML top to bottom, we will probably see an error. So let's say this. Again, sort of reiterating real quick, code that is coming from other places, we oftentimes in JavaScript and in HTML, we want to put it sort of at the top, to list it at the top so that other developers are aware that this code is coming from somewhere else. That's why we had the script tag here in the head. But again, some of you might be already suspecting, well, if you have the script tag in the head, then you cannot really manipulate the DOM because this will be read first. The script will be read first, where the DOM hasn't even been created. So let's look at that in action, or what that means. So let's see. Actually, let's see if I can put this at the bottom. So that I can have this. Nice. Okay, now let's see. I'm going to refresh my page. This is still the same website, index.html, that I opened. Now I refresh. Nothing happens. Remember that before we had the window.alert popping up. Let's change this for just hello for now. Let's see. Hello. Let's see if this one appears. I refresh. I have this page says hello. Okay, so the JavaScript file is linked correctly, is running. But now that instead of hello, I had h.innerText because I wanted to grab the header 1 tag and access the inner text to display in the alert. Now that's not happening. Now when you get something like this, that you see stuff in the page not happening that you expect, most likely is because you have an error popping up. You're just not seeing the error because JavaScript is not, sorry, HTML is not, doesn't complete as loudly, I guess, as JavaScript, or JavaScript will get a red error. The fact is, if we go to the inspect, we will see this x1 and an x saying that there was an error. And to see that error, we can see it in here in the console. That error is this: cannot read property inner text of null. So then it says index.js line 2. This is index.js. This is line 2. So it turns out that here h, which we expected to be our header, is null. Now I refresh and we see that h is null. And then why is h null? Because the script will be executed first, and then after the script is executed, then the body sort of executes and builds up all these elements in the DOM, right? But the script is trying to access the DOM when it hasn't even been, the HTML hasn't been read, the DOM hasn't been created. Therefore, if you try to grab something like an h1 from the DOM when you don't even have a DOM yet, you end up with h being equal to null. So that's why then when I do inner HTML or inner text, I get the error cannot read property inner text of null, because h is null, h is not an object, and it therefore doesn't have an inner text property. Okay, so wouldn't it be nice if we could here still be able to import our JavaScript at the top in the head, but somehow wait for the DOM to be loaded so that we can actually interact with it, so that we can actually add elements or remove or access elements in the DOM. So the answer is there is a way in which we can wait for the DOM to be loaded and then do stuff with the content of the DOM, which will have all our elements. So here is where events really kick in. So all elements in a website have .add event listener method, and we use that by saying, or sort of the signature is, and here I'm going to write in a comment, where to listen for add event listener, and then we do, this is just in a comment because we're going to see how this translates to actually adding an event listener to any element. So where to listen to, in here we're going to pass event and something we call the event name or the event type, and callback. So this is how we are going to be adding event listeners to our elements. And again, the purpose of this is so that we can listen for a particular event, like a click, like a hover, like a mouse move, and then invoke this callback for every one of those events. But in here, what we want to do is wait for the document to have the DOM loaded, and so that we can access the H tag. Okay, so for doing that, what we're going to do is where do we want to listen to? Where do we want to listen? Where to listen? Yeah, where to listen. So we want to listen in the document. So we do document that add event listener, and then the event name. The event name or the event type, also as shown here by VS Code, has to be a string. And this string is what event do I want to listen for. In this case, there is a special event that I want to listen for, which is DOMContentLoaded. loaded. Again, the names of events are predefined. If you go to Google and type add event listener, you are going to get probably the W3 schools or the MDN. Here is all the information, all the details as to what add event listener does. Here you see event target. In this case, my event target is a document, or where do I want to listen, right? And then here we can see, let's see the syntax. So the target add event listener, the type is the first argument. The second argument is something called listener, and there's a third optional argument called options. And then let's look at here what the descriptions is. Type, a case-sensitive string representing the event type to listen for. Okay, and then the listener, an object which receives a notification, an object that implements the event interface when an event. Okay, this one is, oh, here, this one. This will be an object implementing the event listener interface or a JavaScript function. This is what we're going to do. Our listener is the function that we want to fire as the event happens, and that is going to be a callback function. See the event listener callback for details on the callback itself. So here, what I wanted to show you is that the first argument to add event listener, which is the type, I want to show you all the event types that there are. Here, the event reference I just clicked. In this, I think it's because I have it like that. Let's refresh all of this. All of these events we can listen for. Some of the ones that we're going to use is, let's do Command F. Let's search for DOMContentLoaded. So this is the one that we're just using. We're just about to use. Then this one says, the DOMContentLoaded event fires when the initial HTML document has been completely loaded and parsed without waiting for style sheets, images, and subframes to finish loading. The important part here is that this says it's going to fires when the initial HTML document has been completely loaded and parsed. That means our H tags are there, our paragraphs are there, our buttons are there, our images might not be there, and our styles might not be there yet. But we got what we're interested in, which is just like having the elements loaded, like the H1. And so there are tons of them. Some of the ones that we're going to see here are Command F. Then I'm going to do submit. We're going to see the submit event form. We are going to see the change. I think there's a few. There are 141 type of change. There's some of it that we're going to see. What is another one? We could have mouse over. Mouse over is sort of like the actual hover over in something. That's when the mouse comes over. We could listen for that as well. But going back to what we were talking about, in here we have this event name that we want to listen for, and then here, remember the second argument is a callback function that will be executed as soon as the DOM is loaded. So here I'm just going to do an ES6 anonymous callback function defined in the argument itself, and I'm just going to open up this. So for now, let's comment this code out, and here I just want to show you. Let's do console.log or window.alert. The DOM was loaded. So internally, the browser will fire this event DOMContentLoaded, notifying the browser, or notifying anything that's listening for this event that the event occurred, and therefore execute this callback function. So let's see if this is correct. Then once the DOM content is loaded, we should see this window.alert. Let's see. Let's go here, refresh, and then we see the DOM was loaded. Right. And well, this is not much of a proof that the DOM was loaded, because we're not accessing anything in the DOM to actually see the DOM is loaded. Remember that when we try to access something from the DOM and the DOM is not loaded yet, we get that H in this case will be null because there is no H1 yet in the page. So let's try to move this code from here to inside of our callback. Uncomment that, indent it. I'm going to remove the DOM loaded thing or the alert. And then here, remember that before we had this code outside, just bare on the HTML, on the JavaScript file. Now we have it inside this callback function that will be fired once this event happens. So if this event is listening, if we're listening for the right event, once this function gets called, we will have the DOM now because, well, we waited until that content was loaded, and H1 will be in the page and we can access the inner text. So let's see this in action. Let's go back to our browser and let's refresh, and we have welcome to my website. This text was taken from the DOM, right? Because we were waiting for it before that. So here we ended up having, we added, what we did here, we will say, we added an event listener to the document to listen for this event, the DOMContentLoaded. And then once that event happens, this is what gets executed. This function will be fired. Cool, let's see this. Anything else? So that's pretty much it. We could also see, let's do, for instance, instead of alerting, we could do a console log. DOM loaded. Let's do, for instance, yeah, DOM loaded. If you have your inspector open, your developer tools open, go to the console. Once you go there, you refresh, then you have DOM loaded. Again, we know that the DOM is fully loaded because we have an H element here. Let's do that one. Now we see the H tag there. Cool. So stay tuned for looking at the click event, how we can add just the same way that we added an event listener to the document. Now we can add a click event listener to a button and then fire a function based on that.